I'd like to call the Madison Public Schools Board of Education meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Our second agenda item is our school community session with which offers public participation. If we have anybody, then Emily will share the rules of engagement.
So the board welcomes public comment at our meetings, whether you're in person or online. We ask that you just state your name and address, and we do limit comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in person who would like to speak? Anyone online? We do not. Okay, thank you.
That was quick. All right, so next up we have our Board of Education Student Representatives report with Brooke and Grace, freshly back from summer. How are you doing? You should tell us part of your report. How was your summer?
Summer was great, but back in the swing of it. It's good to be back though, don't get me wrong. But that first week we kind of just set like all the ground rules and stuff. And this year, at least the first time in my high school experience, we had grade-wide assemblies to kind of set the ground rules. In the past, with just your advisory teachers. I think the point of this was just to make sure everyone's like super crystal clear on everything. Because I know last year with the phone policy, some people were a little bit more lenient than other people. So we just wanted to make sure everyone's on the same page. And especially now that we have a new attendance policy that's a little bit more strict as well. And I think that was well received. And then looking a little bit more in the week on the 5th is the back to school event, which I'm sure many of you have been to one of those before, but the parents get all the inside scoop and everything. And there's also going to be a message from the athletics department and the PTO, so the parents know about your what's happening in the school and the outside school activities. And I will also be there because the fun part is the club and athletics tables will be on the table, just kind of spark some new recruits and new members and try to get as many people as involved as into the hand community as possible. And it's kind of good for those, especially those freshmen who aren't quite sure what like a club is, or they're not like sure of a team's policy. You kind of get straight to the point, and you also know like who's your student's going to be with most of the time. So it's pretty great opportunity. And then looking farther into September, but people are already talking about it, is the School Spirit Day. And that's when all the seniors dress up in blue, the senior picnic and the pep rally. And there's a lot of excitement already, but I'm sure it's going to be an amazing day. And also later on that day is that first football game, which I'm sure is going to be super highly attended because of all that excitement from the school day and because it's the first football game, so you can't miss it.
And then going on with the sports, today we had some of our first games of the season. So I'm a soccer player, so the girls soccer team beat New Fairfield by 2. So we're starting them off well. And then girls volleyball was playing Guilford at 6. I'm not sure the results yet. And then boys soccer is playing Shelton at 7:30. So hopefully we can have a successful day. And also a ton of freshmen are on the varsity teams, which is pretty nice to see. And then we had the freshman orientation the Monday before school started, and it was very well attended. We had a ton of upperclassmen willing to participate, almost too many, I would say. There were really small groups because of it, but it led to really personal connections. And I think the freshmen were leaving feeling a lot more confident about the upcoming school year, and also the parents really well attended that event too. Mr. Salutary said there was a really good question and answer session to kind of ease the way into the school year. So that was really nice. And then just from a junior's perspective, it's definitely been the transition everybody talks about, very notorious, but our teachers are helping us out. And I think we're kind of figuring out how to handle the AP classes that most students are taking.
Thank you. Any questions?
Are there mentors for the freshmen? Is there a program where upperclassmen mentor or support freshmen?
I don't think there's direct mentorship, like there's not set in stone mentorships, but like from being just on like a sport, like 2 sports teams, I know that they're already built into place. Like I'm already talking to some of these freshmen just because they know that I'm like one of the captains. They know that I'm like a support system for them, so they're already coming up to us even if they did not sit accepted.
And I think with advisory, that's been super helpful, which is a group of students. We have it for all grade levels, but we met all week and last week in a certain room, and we would go over procedures for the year, such as like fire drills or lockdowns. And they went over some of the new policies in advisory as well.
Did you stay with the same advisory all the way through?
Yes,
Nice, the same group of students and the same teacher?
yeah, and the same room.
And the same.
Yeah.
See, too.
Yeah,
And my understanding with advisory, I mean, it started and then it evolved a bit. And I believe that there are some student-led activities in advisory now. What do you guys think of that?
I think, well, they really tried to push it at the beginning, but I mean, if I'm being quite honest, it's kind of not really continued that path. Like, they have said that you can be student-led activities, but at least what I've heard and what I've seen, it's like mostly the teachers kind of take over, and then we kind of sometimes have some small group activities, but I don't think it's quite going through the trajectory that like it was intended to be.
But do you get to ask, like, do you get to put in we talked about this sometime before, suggestion box or what you want? It's what you want to talk about.
yeah, and especially at the end of the school year, there's surveys sent out for every advisory classroom to complete individually. And it'll talk about critiques or things that were approved, so they try and edit it each year. But I think to Brooke's point, it's definitely dependent on the classroom. I know some classrooms are very engaged and it's very productive, whereas other classrooms, the teacher isn't as engaged or the students aren't as participating like as they should be. So I think it's kind of imbalanced.
And who oversees that, like,
I know there's like two main advisors who are teachers within the building, but really just like your advisor kind of over that advisor group, and then the curriculum is by two main coordinators.
Right.
Ron Spears is one you've heard from. Well, I'm just saying, to your point, if there was a particular group that maybe wasn't working well, how could they, maybe spread those kids out or change it around a little bit to maybe make it more productive, so.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm hearing that maybe there's a little bit of inconsistency maybe in application, but as a general matter, do you feel like there are lessons that help with emotional intelligence development and promote positive school climate that occur in those sessions?
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like, I think some people just absorb it, like some groups just absorb it more than others, but what they're teaching us is very valuable. So.
Thank you. Other questions? Thanks. That was awesome. If you guys have first week homework or anything, feel free to back up whenever you want.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Have a great year.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Right, moving on to the superintendent's report, Dr. Cook.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Klaskin. I'm excited tonight to introduce my intern for 24-25. Andy Gass joins us from Guilford. She is the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. So a pretty long title there, but I know she handles even more than that. And I wasn't sure we'd see her today because it's their first day of school over there, and I know she's busy getting out to school. So welcome in. Welcome. See you a lot this school year. In terms of the school year, I shared with central office staff today when we had a very brief meeting. I would say, my 4 years, it was the smoothest opening, and we've had smooth openings before, but it was truly a very smooth opening. This school year, we had 4 student days last week and 1 today, so we're really off and running. Students were talking about, tests and assessments happening this week at the high school. So it really is right back in the swing of things. And as our students shared, there was a lot of community building that happened from the high school to the preschool. So it was really great to see and have everybody back. Enrollment projections were pretty spot on. I look forward to sharing the October 1 official numbers with you, which still had some students registering. So still going through that. We're in a good place with that. I would say buses was a typical start. We had some bus routes that had to be addressed as soon as they were posted. I was thrilled that we were able to address some before we even started the school year. So there were some routes that we were able to address some concerns or changes needed to be made, before the school year started. Some that, once we had them run for several days, realized that they were gonna be outside the range of where we wanted them, and there were some minor changes made, but it was really a smooth opening, considering we had about 7 new bus drivers in there. And as I reported last meeting, fully staffed in nutrition services, which we're thrilled about, and we're being able to offer more food offerings at the high school in particular, because that was a problem last year with the short staff. And so we're in a good place when it comes to that area. As I said, before too, really a good place with staffing. We do have a couple long-term subs open, and I know we had some last minute resignations of staff that either received a promotion or a job closer to home, or another move, maybe from a 1-year position here to a more permanent spot in another district. But we've been able to make that work, and we stand in a good place as we open the school year. In terms of the CIP, the facilities committee met earlier tonight. They considered the CIP no change from the previous edition that the board did see. I asked Peter Anderson to hang out through my report in case you had any questions. The board has seen that now for the second time, and so if you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll let Peter after my report if you have no further questions. But we did do a lot of work. We've spoken with the town, and they're pleased in terms of where that is right now. Still several steps to take on that, and they take the town's CIP, combine it with ours, but we do seem in a better place, as we are standing today versus where we have been in previous years. And we've got some really nice CIP allotments in the last few years. We have some good projects as well. They'll be good to get completed next year. And I know Emily has a report on this as well when we get to facilities. In terms of accountability results, I don't want to share or take too much of the thunder from the principals who will be here next meeting. So on the 17th, we have all of our principals joining us, and Gail and I will share our accountability results. We were very pleased as we looked at results. We had results for a little while. But then we're able to compare kind of where we placed in the state. And we all know, we say this every time, it's kind of with a disclaimer, this is just a piece of our district, and does not tell the story of each of our students, but I think is an important piece of where our curriculum is aligned, and our teachers. So our convocation, I thank them profusely, as did Chairman Klaskin. Our principals at the meetings that they had at the school level for the results. We didn't have the comparison data at that point, but principals were excited to share that with them, and we're putting the final touches on the presentation that you'll get a week from Friday, so you'll have some time to review before that. But just kind of as a high level view, SAT was number 10 in the state in English language arts, number 4 in the DIRG, and for math, we were number 1 in the DIRG and number 6 in the state. So very strong in terms of SAT. We knew we had a little bit of increase, but maintained a very, very strong ranking in those areas. And then in terms of SBAC for ELA, when you look at all the grades combined, grades 3 through 8, so good look at our educational program in those grade levels, number 4 in the state and number 2 in the DIRG for ELA, so very strong. And then math was number 4 in the state and number 1 in the DIRG. So really solid results. That we continue to return. Thank our teachers and principals, and most importantly, our students have really put importance and time in the test. I think the time on tests, and you'll see the chart we showed you before in terms of participation rate, it's just incredible. So where we come to. So we are 100% in some places, but high 90s across the board in the participation rate. And my final piece was just to share with the board. I just got the flyer, so we're excited. We did this as a district last year, but we're going to do this more full scale as a as a district on September 27th. The entire district will participate in Ask for Hope, which is a fundraiser for the Tommy Fund for childhood cancer. Students would bring in a donation of $1 or more and wear a hat for the day. Staff are also able to do that. Christian Capizzi, a Polson student, is the leader for this fundraiser, and he's really does a lot of the work himself. He came and met with me over the summer and shared his plan and how he wanted it to happen this year, and so just thrilled for the way he's gone about it, and benefits Milo Cancer Center at Yale, and they really do great things for families of students, to support families of students as they're going through cancer treatment, a really tough time, but you know, our staff has been phenomenal with this, and Christian's led that. So I want to thank him and thank the staff for participating.
Thank you. Just first, while we have Peter, does anyone have any questions on the CIP?
I do have one question. I noticed there in the Polson, where are we in the auditorium?
That's a great question. The auditorium is being actually redesigned and reprogrammed. So I'll have more of a report for you. I can actually see. I'm just trying to think about it. We without getting too vague or veiled. Ben and I have redesigned the whole project somewhat and repurposed it in different areas to have it be a little bit more meaningful project. So we've already presented that to their building committee. They were very happy with the results of what we presented. We're going to be presenting that to the Board of Selectmen once that goes forward. I can give you more details of what we're going to do, but it's a much better project.
But we had put it on hold and then I saw that it wasn't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. No, I just wanted
We had talked about
it's
putting.
correct.
putting it up.
If I could jump in,
Yeah, go ahead.
so really what had happened was the HVAC on its own as designed was going to be a pretty expensive project, because it involved ductwork. And that was a building that was not set up for that. So what they have done through the work with the building committee is they have redesigned the AC project, but it allowed us to put a little bit more money into the auditorium project than originally was allotted for it when we were doing the full AC project. So I think they'll have a great result. It involved, it's been presented, you know, I know we talked about it last facilities committee meeting, but you know, it will accomplish the auditorium. Look forward to whether that would either start this coming summer, but most likely the following summer, because it does have some asbestos removal, and so we'll need to close the entire building. Yeah. I'm sorry to jump into that. I just want to make sure that this has been moving forward the whole time. It's just kind of at a slower pace than the new building.
Yes, it's a much better project.
Yeah.
And it'll more bang for the buck. It's gonna be it'll be a welcome project. Yeah.
Thank you.
I did have one other question. I don't want to preempt your report, but I know Diane brought up the idea of putting the Polson and the hand paving together in the year 27, 28 for possible savings, and I see it as is separate.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And part of that has to do with, in particular, it would be shutting down the availability of 2 schools for one summer and not having an option for like, we use the summer school program and stuff like that. So it's actually more effective for the ongoing educational process to do it in 2 separate summers.
Thank you.
Questions for Peter? Thank you very much. You're welcome. And split. Thank you, Peter. All right, any other questions for Dr. Cook on any of the other areas? I guess we're going to be getting a more detailed report on accountability results.
That's the 17th, yes.
Yep. Okay, so I'll refrain on that, other than to say that wonderful to hear that, you know, our board has long taken the position that we recognize that test results are not the be all and end all, that that tell us how our students are doing. We're very proud not only of the test scores, but a lot of the other indicators that our students are doing so well. You know, so we look forward to getting that more detailed report. Thank you. Any other questions for Craig? Thank you very much. Any board member comments?
I'll just remind folks, so for our board self-evaluation, I do have hard copy evaluation forms that you can fill out, and I will be emailing out to board members the version and like an electronic form where you could enter in your assessments, and then Galen and I are going to meet in the next couple weeks to review, summarize, analyze, and bring it to the retreat for discussion. To our retreat for discussion. So I'll have all of that available for people at the end of the meeting.
Thank you so much. And the retreat again is October 1st. Correct. At 5:30.
We're gonna start at 5.
5 o'clock, sorry. And it will include some food, so get there on time. Any other board member comments? I'll just say it's exciting to hear that it was another successful opening of school this year. There's always a couple little hiccups with transportation, but it sounds like it's very minor. That's wonderful. Any audience response to information presented? Anyone online? I don't see anyone. No, okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Lee, do I have a second?
Second.
Stephen, thank you. Any discussion? Discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? No. Okay, motion carries 9-0. I also want to point out that we have both Christine and Diane are on Zoom, so we have a full 9-person contingent at the moment. All right, board committee and liaison updates, curriculum and student development. Stephen.
Yes, we met this evening. And the committee was comprised of Kathy Miller, Marianne Connolly, and myself. And also attended by Seth, and of course our superintendent and assistant superintendent. There's a great deal of material covered. So I asked the other committee members to support me in this, because as I most certainly will miss important pieces to contribute. There were two main items on the agenda that had to do with curriculum and had to do with the summer work. The first presentation was by Michelle Horn, and a significant shift was, and I think a very smart move on the part of our assistant superintendent is versus having curriculum coaches running the summer curriculum work. Michelle Horn agreed to take a leadership role in guiding all of these curriculum efforts, which are extensive. So in short, 59 teachers came in over the summertime to work on a variety of curriculum areas, 7 content areas: English language arts, CTE, science, social studies, math, world language, music, and 91 units were in revision. Now, this is a process, depending on the area, that takes place at different rates over the course of the year, but begins in focus on the summertime. So I'm not going to go into all of the details of each of those curriculum areas, other than to say that it is, again, very much a part of how we do business in Madison, that we invest in our teacher professional development and then trust them to take their expertise and their day-to-day understanding of students and bring it to an ongoing review of the curriculum. What really drives that, and I know, we all know that, but it's worth repeating. It's a process of continuous improvement. So it really is, where are our students? Where are they against these curriculum areas? And how does that inform how we need to make adjustments? So for example, in the past year or two, we haven't been entirely happy with some of the science performance. And consequently, when the curriculum teams get together, part of their goal is to look at that and go, okay, what needs to be adjusted? So that was very much a part of the conversation in the presentation, which is, that process of, never believing that we are there yet, and looking at the data and looking with students and then making adjustments. The next part of the presentation was from our assistant superintendent, and it was about an important process, which is putting together a Madison reading program review team. And their charge was, again, review the district data related to the pillars of early literacy. And this was focused on K through 3, as well as state achievement data, and identify target areas for improvement. And second part of the charge is to examine the programs and evidence of impact of those identified areas. So as they're looking at different things that we do in the district and reading, it's what's working, where's there evidence that it's working, and what might need adjustment. What is of importance in all of this, and anything I will say about this process, is it really started with a mission of focusing on the children of Madison and designing backwards from what does the data tell us that our children need in terms of the programs. So toward that end, what that reading review team did was examined again the data, but they did it against a high standard, which is, let's look at the data with a benchmark of 85% or better in terms of the 5 pillars of literacy. They were looking at best practice. They examined some other warehouse areas of information from cure rate and ed reports, and began a process of really examining materials and examining and considering 3 areas from the State Department of Ed's approved list, and the goal of making recommendations for Madison Public School next steps. I am not going to delve deeply into those next pieces, but I will hit on the things I think are of particular importance. And I ask Gail to correct me if I get this wrong. At some point over the summer, an outside Connecticut investigator and a presentation of Madison's State Department of Ed data was made public. And on the review of that, I mean, there were key areas that were part of our presentation to the state. And a significant number of those areas, for example, I'll give one, and there were several. Did the district create the curriculum? And the answer from the State Department in this report was no. So there were several areas that are a mystery as to how they could come to that conclusion when they basically rejected our application. The bottom line, and I really encourage board members to look at the materials that were presented that are in your packet. It's not huge, but it's presented clearly and conveys the information better than I can in the time that we're allotted. The bottom line is one of those areas that the state recommends GOs, the committee agreed to pilot. You know, they looked at all of the other options, rejected some, I think for some very good reasons that would be indicated in the materials that you have in your packets. But basically, the conclusion of the committee is based on the data, based on what we're doing, much of what we're doing is working the way we want it to, one, and two, when we review any of the proposed alternatives, they fell short in their professional opinion to what currently is being done and would not serve our young people well. So I also would alert you and anybody in the general public that after tonight, there will be posted a reading website tab in our district's curriculum that explains the science of reading and in layman terms and clearly outlines the approach that Madison is taking and in what areas. There was some closing conversation at the end of the committee meeting, which was, have to listen seriously to what was being presented. The committee continues to support our investment in teachers in this process, not just because we love our teachers and we love their professionalism and their professional development, but because the data and the evidence is clear that what we're doing is working. And to do anything other than what we know is working, is morally wrong. So, it was really came out of the committee, a statement that the committee supports and continues to support this work in this direction and encourages the board really to, explicitly support that if people do. I think that covers it, what I missed.
Nailed it. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. It's good. Good, Steve.
Any questions that I may or may not be able to answer?
Just by way of explanation quickly. The context of all this, of course, is the state right to read legislation. And its mandate that school districts adopt one of several state-approved reading curriculum programs. We have resisted because we feel that the data supports the very clear notion that we're doing a better job educating our students our way than any of the additional reading programs that the state, would probably prefer that we use. I had asked if maybe it would make sense to vote as a committee to recommend the adoption of the summer reading review committee's work and recommend it to the board for adoption. And the feeling was, after discussion, it's probably premature for that. We may not need to do that, but we just felt, and Stephen felt, that the committee felt it was very important for the board to be fully apprised of where we stand, what we're doing, and have an opportunity in the future to discuss it further if anyone has any questions. So that's pretty much where we left it for now. And I just want to lend my support 1,000% to the work of that committee, to the work of the CRC, the Curriculum Review Committee that happened this summer. It's just amazing work that goes on here, and I'm proud to be part of the board that supports it. Thank you for your report, Steve. Good job. All right, Facilities Committee, Emily.
Yes, the Facilities Committee met this evening. As you've heard, we started by reviewing the 2025-2026 CIP. As you've heard, there have not been any updates from the last time we reviewed it. Peter did look into the paving as Kaylin asked about, but stated that it's better to spread it out and keep it as it is. The first selectwoman and the finance director are responsive. It seems like this will be hopefully positively received, and you'll see it's a fairly modest, fairly even, evenly spread out and across the years. So we'll vote on that later. Peter also gave us an update on summer work. So Ben, the new construction manager, gives Peter very comprehensive monthly reports on all that's going on around the district. So we get a lot of content there about pulse and HVAC, planning and design, field work, the baseball fields, ground site work for the playground, the conversion, ground pre-K areas, the rooftop units, ground signage, lots going on. A ton of information, and moving forward based on Diane's suggestion, no, she's not here anymore, which was helpful, as we'll sort of break up the report by building, because there was a lot of content, so that we can ask any questions building by building. But it seems that Peter's really happy to have that information, and Ben's doing great, and there's been a lot going on over the summer. We did talk about having a field trip again to Brown to see the summer work. Peter reported that he's never, I think he said he's never witnessed such an extensive and amazing transformation, renovation to the building. He was absolutely thrilled with the work Secondino Brothers did, a super job. So we'll keep you posted on that. But he seemed absolutely thrilled, and everyone's happy with that transformation. It's really feel like a pre-K elementary building. We then had an initial discussion looking ahead to the Jeffrey and Ryerson buildings. This is something that, as you all know, the board has to make the decision when those buildings are no longer used. When we give the keys back to the town. So the plan that we always discussed was raising the Ryerson building. There had been a school that had expressed some interest in looking at the building, but nothing came of that. As you all are familiar with, Ryerson is sort of I can't imagine any other uses for that super building. And then in terms of Jeffrey, Peter did some research about how much it would cost us to mothball the building. Basically, if we wanted to hang on to it and keep it, if we ever maybe needed it again, that would cost about $50,000 a year to sort of check in on it, plumbing situations, things like that. So we discussed a little bit, what we might see the use of that building be. There were some, good comments from committee members that a big part of this reorganization has been reducing our footprint. And it seems sort of strange to keep a building open when we've been very clear that we're really focusing on these 4 buildings. We don't have anything off the top of mind that we could use it for. The town hasn't expressed anything yet. The only thing we talked about was, if and whenever we might want to expand like a giant preschool thing, but that really doesn't seem feasible, especially with what Craig said about enrollment numbers aren't much different from what has been projected. So, and it would be expensive, to keep Jeffrey open without town help, and I don't think any of us want that to happen. So this is the beginning of a discussion. At some point, we will need to, take action on those 2 buildings. We don't do that right this second. We can think about it and discuss it at future board meetings. So to be continued. We did not have any public comment, and we adjourned at 7:15. Any questions or comments? Any members want to add? Anything to ask Stephen? Good.
Thank you very much. Report. Finance Committee, Galen.
We have not met, and our next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks from now, 5:30 on 17th.
Thank you. Personnel Committee, Maureen.
Personnel committee has not met.
Thank you. And Policy Committee, Diane had to jump off the meeting. She was on Zoom earlier, but she had asked Galen to present her committee report.
Thank you, with help, so I'm sure. So, Policy Committee has not met. We have one action item tonight. This concerns the second reading of Policy 5110.4, student discipline. This is formerly a suspension, expulsion, exclusion from school activities. The proposed revisions are intended to more closely comply with federal legislative statutes and guidance to improve consistency and maximize a positive, what is the term, to maximize positive student behavior before engaging in the disciplinary system. It incorporates AI and ChatGPT and possible violations. And it downgrades infractions regarding cannabis to be on par with that of alcohol. It goes through the definition, scope, actions, and procedures for discipline. And that about that. It's a long policy.
Yeah. But the policy committee has not met either, so there's no report other than that.
Correct.
So any questions? No? Thank you very much. All right, learn liaison, Mary Ann.
We haven't met, I haven't received anything, but I would assume I'm gonna meet next Thursday.
Thank you. All right, so moving into our action items, action item 10. We discussed during the facilities report that there would be a motion to approve the 2025-2026 capital improvement plan, and I need a motion to do so.
So moved.
Emily, do I get a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I just want to thank Peter and his team for helping through this process. Like I said, it's very thoughtful and one of our easier CIP processes during years past. I think it's just, we've done a lot of work in the past, and we're doing a lot of work through the reorganization. So we appreciate all that they've done.
Absolutely. I added, I mentioned during the committee meeting earlier this evening, but I think it bears mentioning again that, we're coming in much lower than usual for these two upcoming, this year and next year, on our CIP plan. And I think that is delivering on representations made during the period when we were looking to do the schools renewal project. We anticipated and predicted that it would help lower and smoothen out our CIP, at least for in the short range. And it appears that with all the work that's getting done on the schools with the project money, it's enabled us to do that. So the CIP comes in well within the Madison investment plan goals, which will also help with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance's job as they move forward with the Madison investment plan. Any other comments, questions? Yes.
I have one question to go back to also. So it's not on the CIP, maybe. And I know that sounds great, what he's gonna do. So how is that gonna be funded?
Sure, so when the school renewal plan was passed, there was a $21 million, $23 million project passed for Polson. So that funding is still available for Polson School. And the original scope of the project, the voters voted on improvements to Polson School. And we presented it as HVAC and auditorium. So we would accomplish those two goals, air conditioning and auditorium. And then potentially do other improvements to the school. So that's what they're
So
looking
it's
at.
still in that.
Yes, yeah, so that it's actually in my opinion, a better use of the funds that were approved by voters and removes it.
Right.
Removes one of our oldest school that would be left, right? So for capital improvement projects. So that's how we've gone from a capital improvement plan of 15 million over 5 years to 9, over the 5 years. Yeah, and I apologize again for jumping in so quickly about the auditorium, but it's such a important thing that we communicate to the public about.
And to know where.
Yes, because
how
as
it's
we
gonna
know,
be
we
funded.
don't have an updated auditorium in town for our students. So this will bring us that at the middle school level, and we'll let the high school students will utilize that as well. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other discussion points? Okay, we have a motion on the table. All in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. All right, action item 11. Discuss and take possible action on the proposed CABE resolution. As you guys will remember, as part of our advocacy through Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, we had an opportunity to present a proposal for a resolution to be adopted by that organization as one of its policy points for the coming year. And it did, and we had a majority of our board come back to me and noted that you approved of the draft. So I attended the meeting where that was discussed by CABE, and they made one minor change where they felt it strengthened the heart of the resolution, the actual resolution part. You know, there's the introductory part of the resolution itself, and then they added a rationale section. And they just took the last couple of sentences that had been in the meat of the resolution and put that down in the rationale section. So it kind of tightened up and strengthened. And it's in your packet, I'm sure you saw it. So we just want to discuss that, vote on it, and if it's approved, then I want to notify Kate tomorrow that it was in fact approved as amended by our board. So any questions, discussion? Well, I guess do I have a motion to discuss and take possible action on the proposed CABE resolution?
So moved.
Stephen, and I will kill Maureen as second. Thank you. Okay, discussion, questions.
I could totally miss this. Are there other boards making similar resolutions?
We're the only board that took a position on the RTR and not mandating future wholesale curriculum programs. But it was very well received by CABE, and they've been very supportive of our advocacy efforts as well. As you guys know from prior reports, there were a couple other districts that the boards submitted a couple of resolutions, but those either were changed a lot or not approved. Okay, thank you.
What is the distribution on this? How was it communicated after it's formulated?
Yeah, so the resolution committee reviews and approves the final versions of resolutions, and then the resolution committee at the Thursday meeting before the CABE conference. So it's the 14th of November. 14th of November. We'll send a delegate to the delegates assembly, and at the delegates assembly, the resolutions are presented to the delegates assembly, to the delegates assembled, and they vote on it. And if it's adopted, then it becomes an official policy position or statement, resolution of the organization. And then they use those to help formulate their legislative agenda. Good question. And so there's actual action on it. It's interesting. It's an interesting process. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Action item 12. I need a motion to approve policy 5110.4 student discipline as described by Gandon earlier. Mary Ann, do I get a second? Great, thank you. Any discussion on that?
I'll just say, I really appreciate the additions and the language around, the language feels very student centered, as of course everything we do should be, but it seems positive and consistent. I really appreciate, in particular, like where appropriate, the district implements strategies that teach, encourage, and reinforce positive student behavior that do not require engagement with the discipline system, and also considering individual circumstances. It just is very human and student friendly. And there's other points as well in the policy, but I appreciate those updates.
And I also, I also credit the, whoever's helping us with our policy development, for adding stuff to support the administration going forward and getting its arms around AI and how generative AI may be used and how it shouldn't be used. And I think that will head off some problems in the past, as kids get a hold of ChatGPT and start sending funny pictures of people's head with someone else's body and all that sort of nightmarish stuff that could happen. So this gives us teeth that we can enforce right from today, so we can pass this. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Action item 13, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the August 20th, 2024 Board of Education meeting. Lee. Have a second? Second. Steven. Great, any discussion? Changes? No, seeing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you. Oh, you know what? There was one thing that I noticed on the policy. Sorry that I'm saying this after the fact.
They brought it up last night.
Yeah, like 360 something. Yeah, in the paragraph that's between line 356 and 366. It's missing a ad, I think. Yeah. I think it's missing a, since we have to have the window open, we might as well fix it. You know what, I can't find it, and it's not an operative word anyway. If I do find it, I'll let zone out. And you make me fix it, yeah, but it's just, it's syntactically incorrect, because it's missing a the, I think. So,
That section's a copy of the state law, just so you're aware.
is it? But yeah, I don't mean to. Sir,
No,
you got it
nothing.
wrong.
Can't say that the legislature did error, but just.
Yeah, I've seen bigger mistakes in
Sure.
state law for sure. All right, any future agenda items?
I'd like to just bring up, the cell phone, what are we gonna do about the cell phone policy or how we're gonna proceed?
I think to start, and I'll let Craig answer as well, but my understanding is that the administration is going to be, getting a group together to look into that. And then, make recommendations as any development.
Yes,
Is that-
yeah, so I was just looking for a date too. Catherine Hart, TJ Salvatore, myself, are meeting with the group intent, just as one step to kind of again share, because there's a lot that they're talking about that has stuff to do with the schools, but doesn't happen during the hours of 7 to 3:30. It doesn't happen during school time. So they're talking about that. So we want to certainly provide support to that, and also share what's going on. You heard our students talking today about the expectations being set at the high school early on, terms of cell phone use. And then I think as Seth said, we're looking at still digesting what came out of the state and looking to bring that to discussions at the policy committee level.
But I would say, it's clear to me that all of the board members really heard the folks from NYU, Madison Youth Unplugged, who spoke at the last meeting, and it's a considerable concern, and there are issues on both sides that it's worthy of a thoughtful approach. We have had a thoughtful approach, but it's worthy of rethinking and seeing whether there need to be any change there or not. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Good question. I need a motion to adjourn. Green. Second.
I'll second it.
Emily. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The abstentions, we are now done. Thank you.